Well, hello there, my fellow FileMaker developers and enthusiasts. This is Matt Petrosky. I create FileMaker tutorials over at FileMaker Magazine. This is going to be, I don't know how long it's going to be, but definitely you're going to get some value out of this. I'm going to show you how I fully optimize graphics for transfer over the network on your interface designs. Now, I use a product called the Theme Studio. It's a product I created to do this, but sometimes I use Photoshop, Acorn, other programs. Now, I'm on a Mac. Acorn is an awesome product that you can get. I think currently they're running a special for $29, and you can do most everything you can in Photoshop. If you're used to Photoshop, it's a little bit different, but here is what I'm talking about. You see this gradient that I've got right here? I'll zoom in so that you can really see that. You can see this gradient right here. Now, the Theme Studio will create straight horizontal gradients, horizontal or vertical, depending on what you're doing. And most of the time, that's all that you need. But in this situation, I'm using these rounded corners. Now, rounded corners get really fancy and a lot more difficult. But you can see right here that the trailing edge of this, as it goes all the way down, this fading edge fades down to about 80 right there. Or it's almost 100 pixels high right there. Now, this works just fine on this form view that I have, but I'm also using this on a list view. So if you take a look over here, where basically the trick of what I'm doing is this is sorted. If I unsort the records by clicking unsort, you'll see that my unsorted records, no big deal. But as soon as I sort according to whatever the break field is on a sub-summary, I'm now emulating in my list view what I have in my form view, which creates a lot of consistency, which is really great. But here is my problem. I've got this trailing edge, so I basically need to redo this graphic. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the process that I use and the tools in order to cut this up and make sure it works really well on the Mac. So let's take a look at my process. Alright, I've switched into Photoshop. Now, I have Photoshop on this machine, but I also have a laptop where I do some of my development. Now, most of the time I can get away with using that simple program Acorn, but sometimes Photoshop does some things a little bit better. So as I zoom in here and then scroll over, you can see that I've actually fixed the problem right there. I've got this to fade off, and this is not a lesson in Photoshop, but I essentially have this now at the height that I want this to. So let me select and marquee and take a look over at my info. It looks like my height now is only 20 pixels high. I don't have that really long gradient down there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back this out, and so we can take a look. I'll turn off my background, and I'm going to do a simple web export from Photoshop. Now, what I do is typically I just save one master image as a PNG. Now, I'm saving to web out of FileMaker, so you can see right here that I have this set to rounded shadow. Once I have my master image, you can cut this up in Photoshop, but you really don't have to. In the past, I used to, but now I'm keeping things really clean. So you can see I'm going to replace this. I save it right onto the desktop unless it goes right into the folder of my theme. Let's make sure and hide Photoshop now, and I'll switch over to the Finder so that we can see my desktop. So there we are on my desktop, and here is that image file right there, rounded shadow. Now that I've exported it, there are some tools that you already have on the Macintosh. So if you created this in Acorn, this gradient effect, which you can do, the new Acorn supports layer styles, and you can do a lot of inner shadows, outer glows, etc. All I do is I simply double click to open this in Preview app. Now, my goal ultimately, you can see right here that the whole width, or the whole horizontal width of the image is 1920. The reason I do that is because any image you create on the Macintosh, if it's going to be a cross-platform solution, then it will distort if the graphic is not long enough, or at least that used to be the case. I haven't tested it here in FileMaker 11 lately. This is just out of practice. If you're just on the Macintosh, then in order to stretch something out and have it replicated, that really is no big deal because the Macintosh has double buffering in FileMaker and for the Macintosh in general. So here's what I do. I simply am going to marquee around the largest area, and then I'm just going to crop that right off the bat. And you can see that it made my window smaller. Now, I don't save my image. Remember, I'm working with my master image right here. So I'm going to zoom in, and then scroll this up. And remember, I'm only 20 pixels high now, where I formerly had the other height. So I will now drag this to the height that I want, and I will size it to the width that I want, which is about 10 pixels right there. I'll crop it again. So the first crop was just to get a gross grab of a smaller portion of this super large graphic. Now that I have this cropped to 10 pixels for my left, all I'm going to do is hold Command-Shift-S and do a Save As. Now what's great is my original image, when I named it Rounded Shadow, all I have to do is hit the arrow key and just type left and then save it. And it goes right onto my desktop. So now I close that and I simply go back to my original object, double click to reopen that, and basically just repeat the same process. Large grab, crop, zoom in with the preview tool, and then you've got it. Right there I can just go to 10 pixels in width and then crop that, and I now have my, well actually that one ended up being 7, so I need to go out here and actually make my correct selection. Sometimes you have to go in and adjust things. The selection will go wider, but now we have, as long as that will show up, sometimes those little handles, there we go. So it is 10 pixels wide now. So I crop it. You can always look at your absolute dimensions right here of what you have, 10 by 24. And I like to have them be the same on either side. So I'll do this one, Save As, and just do the right side. So you can see, in essence, what I'm doing is I'm just starting with the master and then chopping it up. Here we've got just this long grab that I'm going to make, which is going to be right there, just good enough. Crop that, and then I will save it. And that will be the middle. So what this allows you to do is it allows you to have the right, the left, and the middle, but I'm not done yet. If we take a look at these, I want you to recognize as I get information, look at the sizes of these images. We have 3,000 bytes. Now that's, that's less than 4K. You can see right here the gross size is 4 kilobytes, or 1,100 bytes for the whatever this one is, which is the rounded shadow right. Now that's fine. I mean, it's really, really small, but watch this. You can get even smaller than that. So in the case of the middle, what I like to do is, remember the middle itself, it actually won't get much smaller, but I'm going to open this in Acorn, and Acorn has a really nice little feature. If I simply hit the letter C, notice the Acorn automatically sets the crop to the absolute dimensions of the image. In this case, the height being only 14 pixels high. So there's another savings that I'm going to get. I don't need all of this extra blank white space just for the middle when those other images may be that size. So there, all I have to do is just save. So I opened in Acorn just for the purpose of cropping, and then I simply crop it to the smallest absolute dimensions, and then I save. And it doesn't hurt to take a look at these in Acorn as well. Here we can see already that it's a 10 by 24, and when I look at the left and open it with Acorn, it also is a 10 by 21. So something happened there. I've got an image that is slightly off. That's okay, I'll go in and fix that. I'm just doing this for the purpose of showing you. Here is what we're going to do. We're going to resize these using a really cool application called Image Optum. So look at all these sizes. We've got 1396, 1121, and 1078. So with all of these selected, I'm going to use Launch Bar, which is a tool that I use. So whatever I have selected, I can double tap my control key. That's going to bring up this little area right here. I'm going to tab and then say open with Image Optum. So right there, that is your application called Image Optum. When I open this, and it opened off screen, what you're going to see is it's going to actually go through a process and optimize these. And look at these savings numbers right here, 82%, 74, and 74%. So it knocked those 1,000 byte images down to, if you look at them now, remember that was 1,000, that was 1,000, this was 1,000, and now we're down at 240 bytes, 291 bytes. These are itsy bitty, tiny, dinky little graphics that going across the network, breeze. It will blow right over the network, And once it's in FileMaker, you're simply going to replicate. So of course, you just go over to FileMaker. I already have keys set up for me to get the graphic in. I can just place that if I wanted to. Oops, wrong key there. I will place that image. It will look for it. Of course, I put it on the desktop, and I would actually have to type in rounded, whatever, and go to the image. So there's my left, and there the graphic is in, right there. And then everything else that I do is just simply resize those graphics. You can drag the middle part in or out as much as needed, and that is how you get some extremely optimized images. Hope this helps you out with your interface design. Catch me over at FileMakerMagazine.com, and happy file making.